The quickest way to reveal prejudice is to put it in a uniform and give it authority. Because some people don't need a reason to target you, they just need an excuse that sounds official. That's what happened on Flight 718 when a gate agent and a first-class attendant decided a black veteran didn't match the seat he paid for. They called it policy. They called it a mistake. They called it keeping standards. But what it really was the oldest trick in the book. Shame him loudly so he'll move quietly. They would have gotten away with it too if the captain hadn't known exactly who that veteran was, and if the captain hadn't chosen to make one announcement the whole plane would remember. Isaiah King didn't walk like a man looking for sympathy. He walked like a man who had carried weight most people never touched. 38, black, broad-shouldered, calm eyes, close-cropped hair. He wore a clean gray hoodie under a jacket and carried a small duffel like he'd learned to travel light. His movements were steady and controlled, the kind of control you learn when chaos used to be your job. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He'd spent enough time in rooms where being loud got you labeled. He had learned to let paper do the talking. And today, the paper said, First Class, Seat 2A. He'd paid for it too. Not with miles, not with upgrades, with money. Isaiah rarely spent extra on himself. He was the type to buy used, save receipts, and keep backups. But this trip wasn't a vacation. It was a funeral. One of his team, a man he'd served with, someone who had once dragged Isaiah behind cover when bullets were close enough to sound like insects. The service was across the country, and Isaiah hadn't slept in 2 days because grief doesn't care about schedules. His knee, old injury, old metal, old pain, had been flaring. He needed space. He needed comfort. He needed, just for one flight, to not fight his own body. So he bought first class and told himself he wouldn't feel guilty for it. At the airport, Isaiah moved through security with quiet efficiency. He kept his hands visible. He answered questions calmly. He didn't complain when TSA patted him down longer than necessary. He didn't roll his eyes when the agent glanced at his military ID and then asked, "Is this real?" Isaiah had learned that respect sometimes came with suspicion first when you were black. He didn't like it, but he didn't let it make him reckless. He reached the gate early. Flight 718 to Seattle. The first-class boarding line was forming. Mostly white travelers. Business suits, designer bags, loud phone calls about meetings. A woman in pearls laughed into her AirPods. A man in a blazer complained about delays. Isaiah stood quietly with his boarding pass ready, eyes forward, not trying to take space, but refusing to shrink. The gate agent, a white man named Curtis Hale, scanned the first-class line with that bored authority some airport staff develop. He smiled at a white couple at the front. "Good morning," he said warmly. He scanned their passes. "Welcome." He scanned another traveler's pass and nodded. Then his eyes landed on Isaiah. The warmth left his face. Curtis's gaze dropped to Isaiah's hoodie, then to his duffel, then to Isaiah's face. He took Isaiah's boarding pass with 2 fingers like it might be dirty. He scanned it. The screen beeped green. First class, seat 2A. Curtis stared at the screen as if it was wrong. He scanned it again. Beep, green. Curtis's eyebrows lifted slightly, not with apology, but with suspicion. "Sir," Curtis said, voice tight, "you're in the wrong line." Isaiah blinked once. "I'm in first class," he said calmly. Curtis's mouth tightened. "No," he said quickly. "This is first-class boarding." Isaiah held up the pass slightly. "Seat 2A," he said. Curtis's eyes flicked to the pass, then to the screen again. He didn't like what he saw. He leaned closer to the monitor, as if proximity would change reality. Then he did something Isaiah had seen men do before, when facts didn't support their assumptions. He created a new story. "This looks like an upgrade," Curtis said, tone dismissive. Sometimes the system glitches. We'll need you to step aside. Isaiah's jaw tightened slightly. It's not an upgrade, he said. I purchased the seat. Curtis didn't look convinced. Step aside, he repeated, louder now, like volume could turn it into law. People in line glanced over. A white businessman behind Isaiah sighed loudly, annoyed at the delay. Isaiah felt the heat of eyes on his back. He kept his voice calm. What exactly are you checking? Isaiah asked. Curtis's nostrils flared. I'm checking that you belong there, he snapped, before he could stop himself. The words hung in the air. Curtis recovered quickly, but not enough. I mean, he added, too late, that your boarding pass matches your identification. Isaiah stared. Scan my ID, Isaiah said simply, pulling out his driver's license and military ID. Curtis hesitated. He took the IDs, scanned the license, then glanced at the military ID without scanning. That's not necessary, he said. Isaiah's eyes narrowed slightly. It is, if you're implying fraud, Isaiah replied calmly. Curtis's face flushed. He handed the IDs back sharply. Just wait, he said, and waved Isaiah to the side like he was a child being disciplined. Isaiah stepped aside because he wasn't trying to cause a scene, but he felt anger rising like pressure. The white couple ahead of him kept boarding. The businessman behind him muttered, "Unbelievable." Isaiah stood near the gate podium, watching Curtis type into the computer with exaggerated seriousness. After a minute, Curtis looked up. "Sir," he said, voice firm, "your seat assignment has been changed." Isaiah blinked. "Changed to what?" Curtis lifted a new boarding pass. "Economy," he said. "We had to accommodate a priority passenger." Isaiah stared at him, not understanding at first. "No," Isaiah said, voice low. "That seat is mine." Curtis's expression hardened. "Not anymore," he said. "You can either take the new seat or not fly." Isaiah felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't a mistake. This was theft dressed as authority. "Who is the priority passenger?" Isaiah asked. Curtis's lips curled slightly. "Someone who actually paid for first class," he said. The insult was quiet, but razor sharp. Isaiah's jaw clenched. He looked around. People were watching again, some with curiosity, some with judgment, most with the passive comfort of knowing it wasn't happening to them. Isaiah took a slow breath. "I have the receipt," Isaiah said. "I have the confirmation email. I have—" Curtis cut him off. "Sir," he snapped, "stop arguing. You're holding up boarding." He turned to the line. "Next!" Isaiah felt his pulse spike. He could walk away, swallow the theft, avoid conflict, but he thought about his friend's funeral, about honor, about the way he'd spent years following orders, doing things the right way, believing institutions had rules. He thought about how often those rules changed when the person in front of you didn't want you to win. He stepped closer, voice still controlled. "I'm not moving," he said. Curtis's face darkened. "Then I'll have you removed," Curtis said, reaching for his radio. Isaiah's voice stayed low. "Call whoever you want," he said. "I'm not giving up my seat because you don't think I look like first class." That sentence landed like a spark. A few people gasped. Curtis's face went red. "You're being aggressive," Curtis snapped, loud enough for others to hear. "Sir, you need to calm down." Isaiah's hands remained at his sides. Calm, still, controlled. "I am calm," Isaiah said. "You're stealing." Curtis spoke into his radio, voice sharp. "Need assistance at gate 14, he said. "Uncooperative passenger." 2 minutes later, a flight attendant in a Navy uniform approached. White woman, mid-30s, name tag turned slightly so Isaiah couldn't read it clearly. She looked at Isaiah like he was already guilty. "Sir," she said, "is there a problem?" Curtis jumped in. He's trying to board first class with an invalid seat, Curtis said quickly. The attendant's eyes flicked to Isaiah's hoodie, then to his face. "Sir," she said, voice firm, "please step away and let us handle this." Isaiah looked at her. "I paid for seat 2A, he said. "He changed it without my consent." The attendant's expression stayed cold. "That happens," she said dismissively. "We have operational needs." Isaiah shook his head slowly. "Operational needs don't include taking my seat and giving it to someone else because you think I don't belong," he said. Curtis's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected Isaiah to name it. The attendant's mouth tightened. "Sir," she said, "if you don't comply, we'll have to involve airport police." Isaiah felt the old fatigue flood his bones. He had complied his whole life. He had served. He had followed orders. He had done everything institutions asked, and still he was standing here being threatened like a criminal because he wanted what he purchased. He took a slow breath and said quietly, "Go ahead." The attendant blinked. "Excuse me?" Isaiah's voice stayed even. "Call them," he said. "I want this documented." Curtis's face tightened. Documentation was the one thing bullies hated. He glanced around, sensing attention. The businessman behind the rope line pulled out his phone like he wanted to record. Curtis snapped, "No filming!" But it was too late. The story was already forming. Airport police arrived quickly. 2 officers, both white, hands resting near their belts. One stepped forward. "What's going on?" he asked. Curtis spoke fast. "Passenger is refusing to move after being reassigned," he said. "He's causing a disturbance." Isaiah looked at the officer calmly. "I'm not causing a disturbance," Isaiah said. "I paid for first-class seat 2A. The gate agent removed me because he said he needed to check if I belonged there. Then he gave my seat away." The officer hesitated slightly at the phrase "belonged there." The attendant jumped in. "Sir, you're being disruptive," she said. Isaiah's eyes stayed steady. "I'm being persistent," he replied. "There's a difference." The officer looked at Isaiah's boarding pass and frowned. "It says economy now," he said. Isaiah nodded. "Because he changed it," Isaiah replied. "Check the transaction history. Check the original confirmation." Curtis crossed his arms, smug. "We don't have time," he said. "Plane's boarding." The officer turned to Curtis. "Do you have the original record?" Curtis's jaw tightened. "It's an operational reassignment," he insisted. "We can do it." Isaiah's voice was calm but sharp. "You can reassign seats," he said. "You can't take paid first class and give it away without compensation and lie about it." The officer exhaled slowly. He looked between them, unsure, and then did what most people do when they don't want to confront bias. He leaned toward convenience. "Sir," he said to Isaiah, "why don't you just take the economy seat and file a complaint later?" Isaiah stared at him. "Because later is how it keeps happening," Isaiah said quietly. That's when a voice came over the gate speaker, calm and controlled, cutting through the tension like a blade. "This is Captain Reynolds." The entire gate area stilled. Even Curtis froze. The captain continued, voice clear. "Before we close the door, I need to address a seat issue in first class." Curtis's face drained slightly. The captain's voice remained calm. "There is a passenger assigned to seat 2A who has not been boarded." Curtis's eyes flicked toward Isaiah, then away. The captain continued, "That passenger is Mr. Isaiah King." Silence hit hard. Curtis's mouth opened slightly. The attendant's posture stiffened. The officer blinked. Isaiah's heart thudded. The captain went on, voice steady but carrying weight. "Mr. King, if you can hear this, please remain at the gate. We are holding departure." A ripple ran through the waiting crowd. Surprise, annoyance, curiosity? Curtis snapped, "Captain, we—" But he wasn't on the mic. He couldn't interrupt. The captain continued, Mr. King is traveling under our airline's military honor program as a verified veteran attending a line-of-duty memorial. His seat assignment was approved personally by operations. Curtis's face turned pale. The captain's voice tightened slightly, not angry, but firm. If there has been any misconduct or discriminatory treatment preventing him from boarding his purchased seat, it will be documented and addressed immediately. The words discriminatory treatment hung in the air like a spotlight. People turned to look at Curtis. The officer shifted uncomfortably. The attendant's face tightened. Isaiah stood still, hands at his sides, breathing slow. Captain Reynolds finished with the line that changed everything. "And for the record," he said, "Mr. King once saved the life of a pilot I flew with overseas. So today, we will treat him with the respect he has earned." The gate area went silent in a way that felt like judgment. Curtis swallowed hard. The officer looked at Isaiah differently now, like he had suddenly become safe because the captain had validated him. Isaiah felt the bitter irony of that, but he didn't let it consume him. The captain's voice ended. Curtis's hands trembled slightly as he turned back to his terminal. "There's been a misunderstanding," Curtis stammered, suddenly polite. "Mr. King, of course. Right this way." The attendant's expression shifted into forced friendliness. "We're so sorry," she said quickly. Isaiah stared at them. "No," he said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught." Curtis flinched. The officer cleared his throat. "Sir," he said to Isaiah, "you can board now." Isaiah nodded once. "I was always able to board," he replied calmly. "You just needed someone important to say my name." The words landed heavy. A few people looked down, ashamed. Curtis avoided Isaiah's eyes as he printed a new boarding slip. First class, seat 2A, hands shaking. The attendant hurried ahead as if she could erase the moment by moving faster. Isaiah walked down the jet bridge with a steady pace, not triumphant, not loud, just present. Inside the plane, first class was quiet and bright. A white man in seat 1A glanced up and then away. A woman across the aisle shifted uncomfortably. Isaiah reached seat 2A and saw his belongings hadn't been there because he'd never been allowed to board. But someone else's jacket was draped over the seat, a fancy coat, clearly not his. The attendant snatched it quickly, face tight, and whisked it away without explanation. Isaiah sat down slowly, knee aching, hands resting on his thighs. He stared forward, breathing. A moment later, the cabin intercom clicked on again, this time inside the aircraft. Captain Reynolds spoke, voice calm but now personal. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reynolds. We appreciate your patience. We had a seating discrepancy that has been resolved." A pause. Then, "I want to be clear. On this aircraft, every passenger will be treated with dignity. If you see something that violates that, speak up." Silence in the cabin. The captain continued, "We are honored to have veterans on board today. Thank you for your service." The announcement ended. The attendant walked past Isaiah with a forced smile. "Can I get you anything?" she asked. Isaiah looked at her calmly. "Just water," he said. "And a written incident report," he added, voice steady. Her smile faltered. "Sir?" Isaiah didn't raise his voice. "I want it documented," he repeated. The attendant swallowed and nodded. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. Mid-flight, another flight attendant, a different one, older, kind eyes, approached Isaiah with a small card. "Captain asked me to give you this," she whispered. Isaiah opened it. No words printed, just a handwritten note. "You were right to stand your ground. Thank you." Isaiah exhaled slowly, tension easing by a fraction. When the plane landed, he didn't rush off. He waited, letting the aisle clear. As he stood, a white businessman from economy, one who had watched at the gate, paused near the front and said quietly, "I'm sorry, man. I should have said something. Isaiah looked at him, tired. Next time, Isaiah said softly, do. The man nodded, ashamed, and walked away. The airline launched an internal investigation that week. Curtis was removed from customer-facing duties pending review. The attendant received a formal reprimand. The police department received a complaint about the officer's suggestion to comply and file later. And Captain Reynolds wrote a report so detailed it left no room for corporate smoothing. Isaiah attended the funeral. He stood at the memorial with other veterans, shoulders squared, eyes wet, and he felt the old grief and brotherhood settle in his chest. After the service, one of the men clapped him on the shoulder. "You make it okay?" he asked. Isaiah nodded. "Yeah," he said. Then he paused. "But it shouldn't take a captain's announcement for me to sit in a seat I paid for." The man nodded slowly. "No," he said, "it shouldn't." That's the truth at the center of this story. The good ending isn't just that Isaiah got his seat. The good ending is that he refused to be shamed into silence, and the whole plane heard his name spoken with respect. Because sometimes the system only corrects itself when the right person turns the spotlight on it. And sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is stand still and say, "No, not this time."